This is it, people. This is what you've been waiting for. This is Everyday Celebrity Podcast. The podcast for everyday people with everyday problems, trying to find everyday solutions to accomplish everyday goals. Let's start the show. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Celebrity Podcast, number one podcast in Oakland, number one podcast in the Bay Area. And today is a special day. We have a woman who is out there and wants to spread her cause. And to some people, this cause might be triggering, but I think it's something that, everyone should talk about. A lot of people have dealt with. And I'll let her get into that. But first, welcome Juliana to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How was your day today?
It was pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What did your day consist of?
I slept in, and then I drank some coffee in the backyard in the sunshine, which was super nice. And then I met up with some friends. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you originally from the Bay Area?
I didn't grow up in the Bay Area, like actually physically live in the Bay Area, but I grew up in a really small town slightly outside of the Bay Area. And my mom's mom lived in San Leandro, and all of her family lived in San Leandro. So I spent a lot of my childhood in the Bay Area.
Well, what small town are you talking about?
It's this little town called Jackson. Do you know it?
Never heard of it.
See? No one ever hears of it. It's really...
like where outside the Bay Area is it?
God, how would I explain it? So if it's I'm really bad with directions, but like if you're going up to Kirkwood in the wintertime to go skiing, you know, you would probably go through Jackson. It's where like the 88 and the 99 kind of intersect there. It's really tiny. When I was a kid there, we didn't even have a movie theater or fast food restaurants or anything. They do now, but when I was a kid, they didn't have any of those. So it's very small, like 1,000 people.
Do you think growing up in a small town hindered a lot of things for you?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure, like a kid, that if you grew up in New York City, for example, you'll probably be a totally different person.
Right. I mean, it's true. There's a lot of things about growing up in a small town that can be good, I guess, you know, but it also can be kind of a fishbowl, you know, and you don't have a lot of exposure to other things. More so now, I guess, because, you know, people have the internet and things like that. But
did you get in trouble a lot?
Yeah, you know, I guess as much as everyone does, you know.
Don't say that. Some people get in trouble. Some people's troubles are totally different from the other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know, I got in some big trouble, and I don't know, the usual stuff, I guess. I had kind of strict parents, so.
Yeah, were they religious parents?
Not really. I think they were just concerned.
Brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have a couple brothers and a younger sister.
Did you go to high school?
Yes.
In Jackson?
Yes.
College?
Yeah, I went to UC Santa Cruz.
Okay, how was that?
It was great. It's awesome.
Smoked a lot of weed?
Yeah. I did a little this and that.
What did you major in?
I was a biochemistry major.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything with that?
No, I'm not doing anything with that.
Why?
No. What?
Why?
I think a lot of it just really had to do with it was really, I'm dyslexic, which I was never really diagnosed with that until I got to college. So school is kind of a struggle sometimes, you know. So, but when you have dyslexia, you create you're really good at puzzles because, you know, you spend your whole time decoding everything, you know, and Science, it was really easy to kind of put those puzzle pieces together because that's how I'd been training my mind all that time. So that was empowering in that regard. But once I got out into the world, I didn't really want to be involved in a career that was so much competition all the time,
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go on to grad school or anything like that. So,
do you feel like you wasted your time in college?
I started out an art major and I got talked out of that, because you're not going to make any money doing that.
Yeah.
You need to be in STEM because that's what everybody does.
Yeah, and you don't even need to go to college for it, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, but.
Right. So true. So true. So true. But I was really into like pleasing my parents. So, of course I'm going to go to college, whatever. Yeah. And so I went to college and I don't think it was a waste of time at all, especially for somebody like me coming from a small town. It was really mind expanding to go to college and, just learn new things and be with other people that you didn't grow up with your entire life. In a small town, everyone knows everyone and kind of you also kind of have some freedom and no one knowing you. And it was empowering to science. I wish I would have stayed an art major. I think that I would have gotten more out of that, but.
Well, what kind of art? Like painting?
Yeah, it was a fine art major, so it was, mostly painting and drawing. Yeah.
So you graduate, and then where did your life take you after that?
Let's see, what did I do right after I graduated? Then I went, I kind of moved all around. So I lived in Seattle for a little while, and then I lived in the Midwest in Milwaukee for a while, and down south in Southern California, and, just kind of moved all around and ended up back here.
Why were you moving around so much?
I guess like.
Are you trying to like find yourself?
I don't know if it was real. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I think it was more kind of strangely a source of travel. Like when you travel, it's really hard to get a sense of what the community actually really is because you're not there very long, just kind of passing through and you're trying to soak up as much as you can and see what you're supposed to see or whatever. And you don't really get a sense of who the people are that live there, and what they're up to. And so it was kind of
Do you think that's a good thing?
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't how can I say this? Does that same mindset, does it like mess up your like relationships and
moving around a lot?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
do you get bored easy? That's basically what I'm saying.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that would be true. But not necessarily with people unless they're problematic, I guess, in my own life. But so most of my traveling around, I would take those people with me wherever I went,
Yeah. You have children?
Yep. I have 2 kids.
2 kids?
Yeah.
Grown?
Yeah, they're grown.
Okay. And how's motherhood for you?
I think motherhood's really hard. I think parenting's really hard. I think people kind of sell it to you as a, especially for women, like you're not really a woman unless you have kids, and you got to do hit these certain milestones, and everybody tells you, oh, it's the greatest thing, blah blah blah, and it is. I'm not lessening that fact, but it's also very hard. It's a really hard job. It's super fulfilling. It's the best thing I've ever done with my life. I'm so grateful and thankful that I am a parent, and it's very weird too. I'm adopted, so I don't know anybody really that I've ever been biologically related to. And
that's interesting.
Until I had kids, I've never even seen anybody that kind of looked like me. So that's kind of a weird.
Have you tried to find?
Yeah. I mean, now I know my biological brother and his family. But I think one of the things when you're adopted and you don't know who the people that you're biologically related to are, you make up a story in your mind of who they are, and it's always kind of fairy tale-esque, they're like the perfect people. They do everything you want to do. They have all your same likes and dislikes or dreams and aspirations, and when you meet them, it's kind of this reality check that, I never thought I had a brother or that, I never thought anything about who that person might be or not be.
How was it when you met him? Was it
weird? It's super weird. Like, how do you reconcile, that you have another family or these additions and things like I went from being a middle child to the firstborn in that group, and that's kind of really weird.
How'd you find him?
He actually found me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and he kind of pursued a relationship because I was sort of like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I want another family. Blah, blah.
Was this like recently?
No, it was like maybe a little bit before COVID. So I haven't really seen him for quite a while, but he's a really nice guy. His family's really nice, You
seem like you don't give a fuck.
Yeah, well, no, that's not true. I think, I don't know. It's just really weird. It's really,
Do you feel like, I'm already a grown ass woman. My life is already set. I don't really care.
It's a mind fuck because can I say?
Yeah, you can say that.
All right. That's really, okay. So it's like, you define yourself as being something, and when you're adopted and you're younger, like for me, can't speak for everybody, but for me, there's this age, I think, between like when you're a teenager and maybe when you're in your early 20s where you have this burning desire to find these other people because, you think your parents are stupid and everything's stupid and, you're just really trying to like find some sort of connection, like some sort of, something that's rooting you somewhere because you don't feel like you have that. And then there's a certain time period where you realize that you've defined yourself as something, and this is what you are now. And you're like I was the person who you go to the doctor and you have that whole page where you have your medical history. And I got, I just draw an X on that because I don't know any of my parents or anything, So much of those things you don't know, like I don't know what my heritage is or any of that. I don't know any of that stuff at all. I can guess at it, but I don't have any of that, And so you define yourself as a person that doesn't have those things. And then somebody shows up who has those answers, and that's a real kind of mind fuck. You have to redefine yourself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now a word from our sponsor. If you think you might be feeling depressed, stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, today's sponsor, BetterHelp, is here for you. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Talk to your therapist in a private, online environment at your convenience. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapists network that gives you access to help that you may not be available in your area. You just fill out the questionnaire to help access your specific needs, and then you can get matched with the therapist in as little as 48 hours. Then you schedule a video or a phone session, plus you can exchange unlimited messages, and everything you share is completely confidential. You can request a new therapist at no additional charge anytime. Join the 3 million plus people who have taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp.com/everydaycelebrity. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/everydaycelebrity. It's waiting for you. What? So, what did you find out when you met him? Did he tell you, spill the beans?
No, I found out some stuff about maybe, there are some things about, like ancestors or whatever, and their family and their side of the family. And
did you find out you're German?
Whoa, weird. I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure. I think they do have German in them. Why? Can you see that in me? Because I wouldn't know that. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Huh. Yeah. See, that's how bad I am at that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I also know that because then my older daughter took a 23andMe test, and she had German in her ancestry thing, but I've never done that, so I don't know. But I assume that must come from me because her, the other half would be was all like Jewish heritage. So the German kind of had to come from me.
Mm-hmm. You're a single mother?
No, I have a partner.
So the father is still in the children's life?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
So you were talking about motherhood. What would you say if when men say women were like their sole purpose in life is to bear children? Do you disagree with that statement?
Yes, I disagree with that statement. I mean, I certainly think that can be an aspect of a woman's life, of course, it's an aspect of my life, but that's not the sole purpose, People can contribute or have other purposes, know?
Okay.
Yeah. And the same as I don't think men's only purpose is to put more kids out in the world either,
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So you make your way back up to the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Why did you choose to come back?
I was living in Southern California, and I felt like I just didn't have I couldn't find any kind of real connection to people except for these artist people that I knew or whatever. But, I didn't really ever feel like I fit in there. Mm-hmm. I never found my pocket. And, I'm kind of a Northern California person. And so I came back up here, and my daughters are up here. Mm-hmm. And, so much of my life has been up here. And so it's a good move, you know?
So explain to me like your, cause I checked out your YouTube and you have, a podcast. What's the name of your podcast?
You Don't Own Me.
You Don't Own Me. Mm-hmm. Can you explain why you came up with that?
Oh, okay.
And just explain your podcast in general.
Right. So I just recently started this podcast, so it's not. Okay, so it all started with I got really burned out at my job, and I quit my job. I would say like in April of last year.
What job is this?
What?
Were you like in tech or something?
No. I work for the UC system, and
doing what?
I was like the director of a couple of departments at UC Santa Barbara. Oh, okay. Yeah. And I just got really burned out. Like during COVID, it was really hard to switch it, a business like that into a online business. And we were really, really understaffed. And, we just it was just really, really tough. And I didn't really believe in burnout. Prior to having experienced that myself, I thought that's just like, oh, that's when you don't want to go into work on Monday and Sunday, stuff like that. Like, oh God, I have to look at my email. I thought that was burnout, not like I physically can't look at my email kind of situation. And so, and then something at work happened that was the final straw. And so I gave notice, and I,
wait a minute. What happened?
There was a whistleblower report.
Okay.
And it involved my department. Mm-hmm. And so when the whistleblower report was being put together, they interviewed quite a few people, like 14 to 15 people, and I was one of them. Mm-hmm. And during the time, we kept saying, okay, our names aren't going to be put in the whistleblower report, right? Because it's a whistleblower report, you know? And you know, we're going to try to do that. And we would call you like something else, whatever. But then when it was done, the whistleblower report was over 80 pages. And they felt like it was too laborious to go through with all the witnesses and pull out all of our names. So we were all named in the whistleblower report. And then the whistleblower report was given to the people who the report was about.
What was the whistle? What was they blowing about? What was the situation?
It had to do with when we were on COVID, nobody was supposed to be on campus, but somebody decided to then go to campus and run a business, allegedly run a business out of our spaces, which is against university policy, even when it's not COVID. But the people were also saying that they weren't there or weren't doing that or whatever. But then
so the campus is closed.
Yeah.
So someone said, I need a space and no one's here. So I'm going to go in here and run a business in this space.
Yeah.
What type of business was it?
It was like making signs and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of smart.
Yeah. I mean, you know,
So he was making signs in the like I don't know, like in the graphic department.
Yeah, he was in one of our spaces. He was doing that, and allegedly, you know, not allegedly, this was happening, and and some other stuff which I'm not going to go into because we're not, you know, not going to go because that would be challenging for the other people in the report, but there's quite a lot of stuff in there.
So the person that got snitched on, he gets the report, and now he sees everyone who snitched on him.
Yeah, and what everybody said and everything. However,
can't you sue for that? For them keeping your name in a confidential?
I don't know. No one really seemed to care. That everybody, like all the people named in the report, were really, really upset, and it was really traumatizing for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. You know, because some people were already. You know, there was kind of people were afraid of the situation and afraid of now they have to interact with this person and what's that going to be like. And maybe they, you know, it was just really, it was such a huge issue. And then there was not really any sympathy from the higher ups to for those people named in the report, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, did they? So when this was happening, were you guys back in the offices or still remote?
No, we were still remote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did the guy end up getting fired?
There was a couple people listed in the report, and I left while that review. You know, because when they give you the whistleblower report, you have a certain amount of time to do what you're going to do with whatever the whistleblower report says, and respond to it if you want. But during that time, I was told I have to now be on campus all the time, even though no one was still really on campus. So to monitor the spaces and those people coming back, but that's not my, and they wouldn't, I didn't, and I wouldn't have any police protect, you know, that like there'd be no security, no anything. It would just be me alone in the office, making sure people don't do what they're supposed to do. And I got in trouble, even though they knew I was at home, that I now have to be in the office all the time so I can monitor the situation. And I just was like, okay, that's the final straw for me. One, I'm the first person listed in the whistleblower report. and I'm the one that has to, you know, I'm the mouthpiece for anything that's going to happen as a consequence of that. Like I'm going to have to go to the people that the report was about and, you know, either fire people or, you know, do whatever it is that needs to be done. Right. But I'm also listed in there as the first person. And now I'm in trouble for not being on campus to monitor them, you know, even though nobody had really come back to campus, and including the higher ups.
Of course.
Yeah. You know, so I was just supposed to be there by myself. And then I was just like, that's too much. It's just fine. You're asking me too much. And I actually.
So was this, when you quit, was this something that you planned out, or you just woke up one day and was like, fuck this, I'm done?
Yeah, that's kind of what I did.
So you didn't have like a backup plan?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, and I get kind of solicited for, like work now and again, so I was like, I don't know, man, this was just so traumatic, and due to COVID, I never took any time off, so I had a lot of time piled up too, and it was.
And they paid you. They paid you.
Well,
out
they had
for
to
all
pay
your
me
time?
out my vacation and stuff like that, and I gave like notice and everything. I didn't just say "fuck you," I'm not coming back or anything like that. But
did they try to keep you?
No, I don't think that's that establishment's priority. When people go, it's okay. I don't think that's not true for all universities in that system, but that university, they don't, in that department that I worked in, they don't retain people. If people want to go. They don't try and retain you, So,
okay.
Yeah.
So what did you do after you quit?
I don't know. I mean, I just recovered. To be quite honest, that was very, very traumatizing for me too. I didn't want to be put in that position, and then all of a sudden, I'm supposed to be doing all these things that are way out of my job description. That somebody else should be giving me support with, and then no one's giving me any support whatsoever, and they're just kind of pushing me out there to do the dirty work. Really, and I don't know. It was really traumatizing for me because I do have a lot of trauma in my past, and I felt like the whole event, the whole thing was just so incredibly triggering for me. Like, okay, now, I'm an abuse survivor, and now you're pushing me out in this space where I have to interact with these men that this big whistleblower report is about, and some of what's in there doesn't make me feel comfortable that I'm going to be safe, So it was really tough, and I was just like, I can't.
Okay.
So I had to recover from being traumatized.
I think we derailed off of my original question about you explain what your podcast was.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah.
But that was good.
We were even talking about that.
That was a good story.
Yeah.
I needed that.
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the name of the podcast comes from a song from the 60s that really became kind of a feminist anthem in the times. And my podcast, like I used to always joke with people that I'm going to have this podcast where we're going to talk about all this really shitty stuff that happens in the work world, that's really fucked up, and, try and kind of change the culture a little. And so, we'll talk about all that stuff, and everybody was always like, oh yeah, because this happened at my work, and that. I think work can be really, really toxic, And so I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this podcast, and I would always kind of kid around about that and stuff. And then, so I kind of go on this spiritual journey over this past year or whatever. And I realized that I had to get out of my comfort zone. And that's kind of how the podcast sort of was, this just never, like I'd be talking to people and there'd be some other injustice in the world that's happening that we're like, fuck this shit. We should talk about it, blah, blah, blah. And then, I went to this. Have you ever been to a sound bath?
A sound bath?
Yeah.
No, but it sounds fun.
Oh yeah, man, you should go.
What is it?
So, we go to this yoga studio, and every third Friday they have the sound bath, and it's like this incredible person sets up all these like Tibetan singing bowls, and then she has like a gong, and she has all these other kind of percussion instruments, and she plays like a ukulele or a guitar or whatever, and she sings. And so and she's like a music therapist, so she uses auditory sounds for therapy or whatever. So she does this huge thing, and it goes on for about 50 minutes or 60 minutes or whatever. And you lay on the floor on your yoga mat with blankets and pillows and whatever.
So you're not actually in the bath?
I think. No, you're not in a bath. The sound going over you is the bath, like it washes over you, right? And so you sit there for an hour and I guess you kind of meditate while the music is happening and she's doing all that. And during the sound bath, I realized that I need to get out of my comfort zone, and I just got to start doing all this crap I want to do but won't do because it's so scary. And so that's how the podcast kind of came about, was those two things sort of blending together.
What was you say you had to get out of your comfort zone. Like, what was so scary? You just like scared of failure?
Yeah. Failure, what people are going to say, people judging it. The fact that you have to look at yourself and it's like, it's not like I'm, like all young and cute and everything. And even listening to your voice. I mean, I don't know how you feel about listening to your own voice, but Yeah.
I think my voice is kind of sexy, I guess.
Yeah, you have a good voice. It's all deep and sultry. Yeah, but I talk through my nose, so it's a different scene going on.
Okay.
Not very sexy, I guess, but there's all of that, like just putting yourself out there and talking about things that are like this. This is way out of my comfort zone, right here. But all the good stuff is there, really, right? And once you get out of your comfort zone, it's awesome.
So how did that change you as a person?
Getting out of my comfort zone?
After you started doing things that you weren't doing before.
I realized life is so much more rich when you get out of your comfort zone, and there's so much more opportunity, and you have so much more freedom. You don't have to, not always so concerned with what everybody else thinks. You can kind of get out of you can just do what you want. And that's great.
And your podcast is not interview based, correct?
No, I mean, eventually people are going to come on and talk about stuff, but I just really, started that as like, okay, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and I'm going to do this and let's see what happens with it. And it was I started my nonprofit. We're starting my nonprofit. And then I thought like, okay, how can I get the word out about my nonprofit, and maybe, kind of dovetailing this podcast idea into that would be a good way to do that.
Okay. Well, that's a good segue. Your nonprofit, can you tell the people what exactly it is? Sure.
Yeah. So I started thinking about this nonprofit, way back in probably 2015. But again, because I couldn't get out of my comfort zone, I did nothing about it. Right. But, so what my nonprofit does is, it works with clients who are affected by suicide, death, mental illness, and partners them with an artist in a field that they're interested in. And the mentor artist will work with the client to create a body of work. And it could be anything. It's any kind of artist. It could be spoken word, could be music, could be, media, could be anything, whatever it happens to be. We partner the client with a person, an artist, to tell their story or a portion of their story or something they really want to tell. And then we find a venue to display that work, or, maybe it's an open mic, or, maybe it's a show or an exhibit or something like that. And in doing that, we kind of hope to bring more facts out about suicide. And so it's so much what people know as can be stereotypes or judgments about it, or old information. And I just kind of create a space where people can talk openly about topics that are a little bit more normally taboo.
Why suicide for you?
I know a fair amount of people who have tried or succeeded at suicide. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are hurting. I won't say, at times in my life, I have actually never gotten to a place where I would seriously do that. But, you do think to yourself, has life rejected me because it's not going that well, or something really tragic or horrible happens, and can I make it through this? This is too hard, or things like that. And
yeah, why do you think suicide is on the rise with teenagers?
I mean, I think life is really, really hard. I think there's a lot of people who feel like, everything's gotten so expensive. I can't get anything. I can't have anything. All these things, this quote unquote American dream. How do I achieve that? How do I get out of where I am? Everything is incredibly expensive. I mean, when I went to college, I put myself through college, and it did take me like 20 years to pay off college. But I mean, literally it was so cheap in comparison to what it is now. So if somebody wants to go to college, how do you even do that? And and I also think there's just such a COVID kind of sort of emphasized this, but there's a challenge with community and connection a lot of the times with all people. Suicide doesn't really have an age range. It affects all people. And I think it's just the feeling of hopelessness, and I can't measure up,
Yeah. When I was growing up, and I'm pretty sure when you were growing up, we didn't have, times were different, right?
Right.
So when I was growing up, I used to get teased all the fucking time for being dark skinned, having an African name. So I used to get teased all the time, but I used to tease back. So I didn't cry. I didn't feel like, oh, these kids are picking on me. You had to have thick skin, and you had to be able to like hold your own.
Right.
When people crack jokes on you, you have to be able to crack jokes back. So, and then plus, like the looks, like when we were growing up as kids, our parents, I feel, were more involved. And I don't know about you, but I'm speaking about me. Parents were more involved in like life.
Right.
Teachers weren't expected to be your parents.
Right.
Your parents were supposed to be your parents. And when I used to get in trouble in school, like the teacher used to call my dad to the school. And that was the most scariest thing in the world, when my dad would show up to school, because my dad will give me a whooping in front of everybody.
Right.
So you had no choice but to behave. And I say that to say, like, nowadays, right, you have children who are addicted to like TikTok. You have children who are out here fighting actual teachers, punching them and shit like that. You have parents that are not really involved in their children's lives. Teachers now are expected to fucking be the teacher and the parent, right, which I think is ridiculous. So, and then you have children who are doing grown up shit, like teenagers fucking and like dating and wearing shit that grown women wear. You know, and so, for example, like when you look at parents and when they have their kids, right? What do? They just give them the phone,
right?
Oh, watch this on the phone and be quiet, or go play the game or shit like that. There's no like, I just want you not to cry, so you're gonna go play the game or do whatever. Like the TV raises kids, and then when the TV and the internet raise kids, obviously kids are going to start like a girl who's kind of like doesn't have a body like Paris Hilton, and that's all she sees on TikTok. She's going to start feeling depressed,
right? And
be like, oh damn, I want to look like that, blah blah blah. Or a kid who's getting teased at school because they can't get the Jordans, they're going to go cry in the room, and then the parent is not going to be like, because if I went and cried at my house, my dad would be like, yo, be quiet, suck it up, be a man and stop fucking crying.
Yeah.
You know, that's the type of shit back in my day. And I feel like nowadays that's why a lot of kids are committing suicide, because they think not looking like Paris Hilton is the end of the world.
Right.
Like, there's so much, and this might be an ignorant statement to make, but I would never commit suicide, because no matter what you are going through, I always feel there's somebody going through way more worse shit than you are.
Right. Right.
How do you feel about
that? Okay. There's a few things. Maybe I'll deconstruct it a little bit. So, yes, I think you're right. I think that there is a image or a world that is projected in social media that isn't true. Mm-hmm. But when really at any age, you can be naive to the fact that might be not true. You don't realize everybody's curating everything. And, and wanting, and, altering what they look like. Recently, even before social media, I was talking to somebody and they were saying, you know what, I think it was the absolute worst thing that ruined, at least women and people I know, body image. And so that it's so huge now, it's very hard to overcome not feeling like you look good, mm-hmm. is magazines.
Yeah. Because
in the day when, the magazines, like, you never see anybody that actually looks like them. It's all highly altered. But to somebody who grew up in, the 90s, that was like the shit. Everybody looked at magazines, all the mm-hmm. magazines. And so they felt like, because that was so tangible, like they could look back on it, touch it, feel it, see it everywhere they looked, that that was actually so detrimental to them and their perception of self, So, mm-hmm. yeah, if you're barraged by it and you're looking at it all day, mm-hmm. definitely, how do you keep up with the Joneses? You can't. And then my question to you would be like, did you ever feel, because, you would get in trouble if you were crying about not having Jordans or whatever, not looking a certain way. Mm. Did you feel like that was hard for you emotionally, feeling like you couldn't be emotionally vulnerable?
Well, yeah. I had African parents, so and African parents, they don't play that shit. They're be quiet, don't cry, no emotion, be strong. So from birth, I was different from everyone else because I had thick skin, and plus I grew up with a crazy father. He was alcoholic. Mm-hmm. He was verbally abusive. So I went through a lot of shit as a child.
Right.
So nothing fazed me in life, because I was like, oh man, I got to go home and then I got to deal with this nut. Right. So all this shit that you kids are saying, that don't mean shit to me.
Right.
So, but not everybody has that same situation in life. Some people, a kid can go to school and a girl could call her ugly, and then she'll probably think that's the end of the world for her, and she'll probably hurt herself or cut herself or something just because one girl said you were ugly.
Right.
And now she honestly thinks she's ugly.
Right. It sticks with you.
Yeah. But if someone called me ugly, I'll be like, all right. You're ugly too. So what?
Good for you. That's, I think a lot of people want to get to that place, mm-hmm. but they don't know how, or it's hard. It's hard. That was the whole thing that stopped me from doing all of this for years, because mm-hmm. someone's going to be mean or laugh or whatever. That's super powerful, right? Mm-hmm. I think we all on some levels, well, maybe not you because you're evolved. We can aspire to be that, but you all, everybody ends up constructing some portion of who they are that is all about what other people think. Mm. And that's really sad, because maybe they don't even think that. You're just assuming they, one person says, hey, you're ugly. And then you assume like all the other 20 girls in the class also must think I'm ugly. And, all these guys think I'm ugly. And these random people who see me at the mall think I'm ugly or, whatever. And then you construct this part of who you are, yourself, that is really just has to do with what other people think and trying to fit into their box,
There was a case a couple years back. I'm pretty sure you know about this case where there was these two teenagers and this girl, she was texting, I guess it was her boyfriend at the time. And he was like, oh, I'm depressed. I feel like killing myself. And she was like, do it.
Yeah.
You remember that case? And then she got charged for murder,
right? Because
she texted him and she was like, do it. And then he did it.
Right.
What's your views on that case?
Well, I mean, that's just a really tragic scene all around, and I mean, we'll never know exactly every nuance of what happened there, but, I think that for one, when somebody says that to you, like, hey, I'm going to commit suicide or whatever, that is a cry for help, but then people will also say that in a joking way, right? So how do you navigate what that might be, especially if you're a teenager, but I think you should always take it seriously. But because we don't talk about this openly, no one has any tools to deal with that when presented with it. Like what's a kid supposed to do when presented with, I'm going to kill myself, and you're trying to be cool because you're really into what everybody else thinks.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know what that person was thinking. I really don't think, she's a child.
Do you think she should be charged for that? Do you think she's responsible for a suicide?
No, I don't think that she's responsible for a suicide. I think if there's anything you could pinpoint would be something more along the lines of she didn't handle that situation as best she could. She might have done something else, like told someone or, immediately tried to be a little bit more supportive or, went to where that person was. I don't really know all the specifics about if that was even a possibility for her. They could have just had a big argument. I don't know, the nuances of everything. But no, I think that's not really enough information. And I don't think when,
there's a lot more details in the case.
Right.
I'm just giving you like the basic points of the conclusion of what happened.
Right. And I don't think that when somebody is at a point where they're seriously contemplating suicide, they're not just like, I feel like I'm going to wear a blue sweater today, and somebody talks you out of wearing the blue sweater because the red one looks so much better on you or whatever. It's not like that. It's an overwhelming feeling that you can't just have a cup of coffee with somebody or, one single conversation and you're, all, better, or, cured or whatever people think happens in that situation. There's so much has built up to that point that needs to be, you can't just change somebody by just talking at them, and you can't, it's not an easy shift, so in saying do it or don't do it, we don't know exactly what was going on in that person's mind who was saying, I'm going to kill myself. So we don't know if, had she said, oh no, don't do that, would the same outcome happen? Or, it's very complex, and you can't just have like some little conversation with somebody and then they never think about it again or they never do it again. mental illness plays a role into that. And when I say mental illness, I don't mean it in the context that it's sort of stereotyped as. I just mean it as, it's not, I think everyone has some elements of mental illness at some point in their life, whether you're depressed or you have anxiety or, you're feeling suicidal or, a whole host of other things that's under that umbrella of mental illness. It's just where you are in the moment and you need help.
Yeah. I think it goes back to, I think that guy's parents has more responsibility in his death than the girlfriend. Because once again, you as parents, how come you don't know your son is having these thoughts?
Right.
Now, I know teenagers you don't know what people are thinking in their mind, obviously, but a lot of parents they see signs, but they ignore them. Like all these teenage shooters that go into these schools and shoot. Like, I'm pretty sure if you look back, there were a couple of signs, red flags, that your kid was crazy, that you ignored. And you were just like, oh, no, he's just being a boy. No, when he threw your cat off the roof, that's kind of a sign that's not normal behavior. Or when he's collecting fucking knives, and when he has a wall full of knives, and he's interested in guns all the time, that's kind of a red flag.
Right.
That's kind of a sign where maybe Brandon, something's wrong with Brandon. Then you ignore all these signs, and then next thing you know, he's on the news. He killed like 17 kids at a high school.
Right. And
you ignore the signs.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's more on the parents. Do you have these talks with your children about suicide and shit like that?
You mean like any kind of hard conversation about that kind of stuff? Yeah, definitely. It's not like I'm going around talking to them about mental illness all the time or anything like that. But, we've had a lot of conversations about, depression, anxiety, cutting, whatever, things like that. One of my kids has a friend who, really struggles with, feeling suicidal or saying, things like that. And, so we've had many, many conversations about that. And in that case, in some cases it's like, okay, well, here's some tools. If that conversation, if something similar happens, like, oh, I just want to kill myself, gets texted to you, here's some things you do, or tell me and I'll tell I don't mind being the bad person that calls up the parents and goes, hey, blah, 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 keep an eye out. But I think one of the major issues is that we don't have a good system in the country for dealing with mental health and mental illness. We don't have any real services that are accessible to people. It's incredibly laborious to get any help, just the fact that you have to fill out paperwork and you need a computer and you need all these things that a lot of people don't have. You don't have access to the health care. You might not have any health care. So how are you going to go anywhere for help? Prescription costs money. Then you got to stay on it. How do you do that? And, there's no real system that deals with mental health in this country that can really help people in that way. People get shuffled around and they go in and out of the system because it's so hard to stay in the system, and it's kind of a taboo subject. So kids don't really know how to recognize it in each other, or, they're just a weirdo if they think one thing or another, or maybe somebody who is going through something then gets ostracized because no one knows how to deal with it, and I don't think a lot of parents know how to deal with it either. It's, sometimes parents don't want to see those things in their kids. And so there's a little bit of denial that might be going on there or something like that. I mean, I've never experienced that, so I can't speak for those parents. This is me looking there and assuming that it's probably really hard to see that in your kid, you know?
You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what is the hardest conversation you think you probably had to have with one of your kids?
God, the hardest conversation. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of hard conversations you have with your kids, you know, a lot of things. I mean, that's your job as a parent. That's kind of harkens back to what I was saying earlier, is that, you know, it's the greatest thing I've ever done in my life, but it is fucking hard. You know, it's really hard to parent. And no matter how you approach it, you'll never do a perfect job. There'll always be something, you know, you'll always be like, your kids will be mad at you for something you did when they were, you know, 5, or, you know, you do the wrong thing all the time because, you know, there's no manual really for parenting. There's a lot of parenting books, I guess, but you know, like it's, and a lot of times, like for me, you know, having kids when I was in my 20s, I was a kid myself, you know, imagine like a 20-year-old person in charge of another person's life, you know? I mean, there's also that, you know, you're just trying to figure your own life out, but then you have like kids also too, you know? So it's, and I think we just have hard conversations when they come up. I'd probably say one of the hardest conversations that I've had with my kids would be stuff pertaining, maybe more to me, like, you know, acknowledging that, you know, I'm really fucked up right now with this, you know, burnout. Now I have all this anxiety and I'm having panic attacks and blah, blah, you know, and it's like, I'm not this, you know, the parents are supposed to be all kind of this pinnacle of the all knowing everything.
Yeah.
They never fuck up. They're perfect, you know, but then to have to say that to your kids, which I think is really helpful, because then that they don't have to strive to be perfect, because that doesn't exist. You know, the hardest conversations are things like that. And like, you know, having to tell them like, yeah, I'm, you know, an abuse survivor, or here's what happened to me in my life. This, you know, because I think, you know, you should know, because that shapes me as a person, right? Those kinds of conversations, you know, I feel are the hardest, because it's also very vulnerable to me. You know, I have to come to them very vulnerable when I'm supposed to be like the parent, you know.
If someone asked you what was the lowest point of your life, what would your answer be?
The lowest point of my life. God, there's been so many. Like, how do you pick one out? I would say like, I was in a relationship for a while, for a fair amount of time, and it was an abusive relationship. And
Physically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Physically, mentally, you know. And when I finally escaped that, I really had no sense of who I am, right? Because I spent like a decade in a relationship trying to be what this person wanted to keep safe, or, you know, whatever it is, or, you know, they rip you down. So you have no really self-esteem. So you don't think anything you think is viable, because, you know, you're told every day it's not viable, you know, so you don't know who you are. And, that was really, I mean, it was really hard to be in that relationship. Fucking scary as shit to escape it. Like, scary. Like, even to this day, if I was to see that person anywhere, I would freak out, you know?
Is he the father of your children?
I don't really want to answer that.
Okay. Y'all continue.
So, Yeah. I think that was the hardest part of my life, is escaping that and then having to rebuild who I am or figure out who I am, you know.
How'd you escape? And what took... Obviously, this happened. This was an ongoing situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was the final straw? Because like something had to happen to where you were like, "Fuck it, this is it. I have to get out of here."
Right. God, I don't know if I want to say what that was, but it wasn't. I will say that it wasn't my own thought, right? It was somebody else stepping in and saying, look, you got to just go.
Mm-hmm.
You got to just go. It doesn't matter, you know.
But I'm pretty sure multiple people have told you that same thing.
Yeah, multiple people.
So did this hit you different because of the specific person who told you?
Right. It was a specific person. And also, like, you know, when my friends would tell me that, then they would go over to their life, right? But this person was so intertwined in my life that what was happening to me was affecting them in a much greater way than, you know, the plethora of people that would come to me and say, get the fuck out, you know? Right. So, and I'd kind of come to, you know, I knew it at that point, like, oh, I have to get out. But, and I'd kind of tried to, but you keep going back because that's, you know, speaking of comfort zones, even if it isn't pleasurable, that's your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You know, so you go there. So I kind of did this like leave, but come back thing. And then, I was just really super fortunate to be surrounded by some really amazing people who helped me get out, stay out.
Mm. Do you feel like you had like a case of Stockholm syndrome?
Yeah, I think no, I don't think so. I think it was for me. I felt like it was just this. Yeah, I guess the element of needing to please would probably fall in that category, but just being like, well, I'm supposed to be in a relationship and this is what women do. You know, you get in a relationship and then you make it work and, you know, there'll be hard times but you don't have a gauge for, you know, again, you're like so young, you don't have a gauge for, well, what is appropriate and not appropriate? I don't know. Like, where is the line? You know, I don't know. Maybe I do deserve it. Whatever, you know, it's that internal dialogue of that. And also I can't live on my own. You know, I depend on this person. Yeah. What am I going to do? You know, live in my car. I can't do that. What will people think? You know, it's so driven by what other people think, you know.
What do you think women, I mean, not all women do this, but why do you think women stay with their abusers as long as they do? Because a woman could be in an abusive relationship, but it never starts off abusive, right?
Right.
And then there's that one time where he chokes you. I'm just giving an example.
Right.
And that choke should have told you, okay, fuck that. I got to get out of here.
Right.
Don't put your hands on me. But they stay. He says, I'll never do it again. Baby, I love you. Blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Couple months go by. Chokes you again, or he slaps you. You're like, oh, shit. He did this again. He said he'll never do it again. But he hasn't done it in a long time. So you start making excuses for him.
Right.
And then next thing you know, that slap turns into actual like fist. Like he hits you.
Right. So
why do you think women, and you don't have to compare this to yourself.
Right.
But just give me what your thought is. Why do you think women don't leave after that first time? Like after that first choke?
Right. I mean, I can only speak for myself, and I would say that it's so gradual, like first they're like, oh, you're, everything and blah, blah, blah. And you hear all these things that you have been wanting to hear from somebody, and then, they're going to take care of you and all this stuff. And, slowly they're isolating you from the people who might support you and, know, and then you become isolated. And then, kind of what you're talking about sort of starts happening. And the first time it happens, you're like, man, did that even happen? I mean, you kind of talk yourself out of it, maybe, right? Like, did he mean to do that? Maybe he didn't mean to hit me that hard, maybe, you kind of talk yourself out of it. It's so sort of bizarre in a way that it's almost like, did it happen? It's just so weird. You don't have framework to say what it is in your own mind. So therefore it just kind of lies out there because you can't compartmentalize it into that guy's an asshole, leave him, because it's weird. It's weird that somebody who loves you would do that to you. Right. And it's so gradual and you're so torn down emotionally and mentally that you don't have a sense of self anymore. So you don't really, you do kind of think you're garbage, or I did. Like, I'm only worth that. I can't get like a regular relationship because now I'm damaged goods. And, maybe that's all I'm good for is that, that's what I deserved it. I expected it. I should have cleaned the bathroom more, or whatever you get in trouble for, and then, there's that whole thing of like, if you leave, they'll stalk you and kill you. There's this fear, like you can't leave, or what'll happen to other people, who are close to you. He'll get them too. And, it's really so you're kind of imprisoned in this fear of it all, like you can't get out. You won't be able to get a job. You can't make money on your own because oftentimes you're not allowed to make money. Or if you make money, it's at a certain thing that you feel that person is controlling in some way and can take it away from you at any time. And there's a lot of stigma about like, oh, you leave them, then they're also usually very good at telling stories, right? So what they're telling other people is not the truth, but it will ostracize you from the only group that because all the shit talk's going to happen about you, and then no one's, you're going to be alone. And, it's just so many factors of you can't do it. And then it's your comfort zone, even though at least even though I get the shit beat out of me, once a week, I still know what the expectations are.
Yeah.
But if I'm in like a functional relationship, I don't know what those expectations are. Or alone, I don't know. I think there's a lot of that. It's just, and the resources, like where do you go?
Yeah.
Where do you go if you run with absolutely nothing and he controls the bank account? Where do you go?
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So your nonprofit, where can people find you?
Well, we're on Instagram and Facebook, and we have a website, socialrefugees.org, and we have a link tree on Instagram, which is at Social Refugees, and the same with Facebook. And there's a link tree on there that has links to how you can help us, how you can get involved, all the ways you can give. And if you're interested in being a client or an artist, and our goal is that when we do have mentor artists, those artists are paid adequately for what they do, and we don't have an expectation that they would give of their time and expertise freely. They should be paid, so they would be paid a livable wage, whatever that is, if it's a per hour thing or whatever for what we're doing. It would be tailor-made to that, but they would be paid adequately for that. And so right now we're just at the fundraising stage to be able to do that kind of work. So all of those things are on the Linktree on Instagram.
How many people are in your, is it just you doing this?
It's basically just me. Some people help me out, volunteers and things like that will help me out, but it's just mostly me right now.
So you're looking for like workers as well?
I mean, yeah, if I'm looking for money first off, because that will really help with the workers and the artists and all of that. So that's a really big, important part. And hopefully we'll find an organization. I'm looking for an organization that might be willing to take us under their wing and help us. A lot of times, bigger nonprofits will take a small nonprofit or even just a group of people who want to eventually become a nonprofit, sort of under their wing and be the umbrella organization, the mentoring organization for that group, so that while that group, like Social Refugees, is getting their 501c3 nonprofit paperwork completed and getting all of that together and everything, they can use the parent company's nonprofit status to raise funds, to write grants and things like that. So we're also looking for an organization that would be willing to do that.
Okay. Where do you want to see this nonprofit organization? What's the ceiling for you?
I think that it is so needed everywhere. I guess my biggest dream for this would be for it to find success and be everywhere, be, all over the world, because there isn't one place that couldn't use it,
So do you want to have physical built locations, or just all be on like online or something?
Well, I mean, there'd be physical locations, because anytime there is an artist is working with a client, they might need to be physically together doing that. And then the exhibit or the presentation or the show or whatever it is would also be in person. So it'd be nice to have a bunch of satellites everywhere, all doing work in their communities, and how that would best look for them.
Okay.
That would be the dream.
Well, I see it coming into fruition. I mean, I think the cause is something that I believe, like, no matter what your background is, I think the cause is something that no one will be like, oh, I don't want to support that. Because if you say that, then something must be really wrong with you if you don't support this. So everyone, please send her some money. She needs it. If you're an artist out there in the world and you hear this podcast, please reach out to her. What's the easiest way you want people to, like, emails?
Yeah,
Instagram.
You can. Yeah, any way. Instagram. You can email me. You can. There's also, if you're on the website, there's a contact page, and you can fill that out if you want.
Okay, and tell me the website again.
socialrefugees.org.
Okay. All right, Julia. I said your name right? Yes.
Yeah. Well, some people call me that.
I'm bad with names. All right. So I appreciate you coming on Everyday Celebrity Podcast. It was amazing hearing your story, and hopefully it will inspire somebody out there, because this is heard around the world.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun, and I really appreciate your support.
Yeah. Hard issues, tough questions. Everyone should talk about shit that they are scared to talk about, because that's how you solve problems.
Right.
You don't solve problems by just put it in the closet and just hope it solves itself. You know what I'm saying? When you put it in the closet, it's just going to get worse.
Right.
It's just going to grow into a demon. The next thing you know, the demon busts out the closet and kills everybody.
Yeah. Right. Oh, God.
Yeah. All right. This is Everyday Celebrity Podcast, and we are out.